We'll talk specifically about totalitarianism, but under the Soviet Union, under the leadership of Stalin, he will take over after Lenin dies in 1924. So there'll be a couple years of a power struggle, but he will rule until 1953, and he built something beyond what Lenin could have ever imagined. He wanted to create the perfect communist state in Russia. The only problem was he wasn't really sure how to do it. He himself was a very paranoid man, very suspicious of really friends and obviously enemies. And again, his mind would kind of go rampant on what would happen and what could people do. So he's constantly always looking over his shoulder. And he ends up transforming the Soviet Union into this totalitarian state, and he destroys his enemies and also some of his friends in doing so. He uses terror as a weapon to create a police state, and really to maintain this power, you had informers all over the place. You had secret police. They used tanks and armored cars. They would stop any type of rioting. They would, again, inform and find out anyone that was dissenting against his rule. And starting in 1934, Stalin turned really against his own party. Now, the Communist Party is supposed to rule the Soviet Union, and he is the leader of the Communist Party. And what happens is he started what we call the Great Purge. It really, if you purge something, you want to get rid of it. So he wants to get rid of really anybody that disagrees with him or he doesn't like, any opposition at all to his rule. And he really starts first with the old Bolsheviks who helped in the revolution back in 1917. They were killed or they were sent really to labor camps. Now, this didn't just include old Bolsheviks. It included army heroes, industrial managers, writers, and even ordinary citizens. They were charged really with a wide range of crimes, from counter-revolutionary plots to failure to meet production quotas, which I will talk about later. You see the secret police would monitor phone lines. They would open people's mail and read them. They would plant informers really anywhere. And what Stalin did is he had what we call these show trials, and they weren't really trials, but many people confessed to doing all kinds of things that they didn't really do, and they're going to be sent to the Gulag, which is a forced labor camp or a concentration camp, and they were never heard of again. And you will see that the secret police would torture. They would threaten your family. So many people just really were purged from society, and they felt they had no choice but to confess to what Stalin wanted them to. This is a picture of the Gulag. It's basically in the eastern part of Russia, so we're looking Siberia, cold, somewhere cold for sure, where there's not a lot of large population. And they were labor camps, and you didn't have enough food. A lot of people died. It was very unsanitary, very similar to the concentration camps that we are going to see during the Holocaust, but you don't see the rapid rate of death as you would in the Holocaust camps. But this is something that's going to continue throughout Stalin's reign. Anybody that doesn't listen or doesn't meet production quotas or disagree, you're going to the Gulag, which is, again, the name that he's going to give it. Russian propaganda. He will also control really the hearts and minds of his people. You were in a censored state living in the Soviet Union. You couldn't print anything in the newspaper, you couldn't write anything, you couldn't produce any piece of artwork unless it was given official government approval. And your works had to boast and really talk about the achievements of the Soviet Union and specifically of Stalin. So you want to paint a picture of Stalin, you're going to get that approval right away, and his economic program. So again, you're going to see things are not going to be printed or approved of, and you could face, again, going to the Gulag if you would produce anything and submit it that did not fit within this range. Also, too, the Soviet Union is actually, it's not just Russia. Russia is the largest of the 11, but there's other different nationalities, like the Ukraine is one, and you will see that he's going to try to make everyone more Russian and make a nationality more Russian. The way that he would do this is he would appoint leaders in these different republics that were Russian. That Russian was the official language, so you had to speak that, regardless of what your language was. And if you kind of can see this map of the Soviet Union, you can see that there's different areas that make up the Soviet Union. Russia, though, and this is where a lot of the Gulag was, Russia is going to be the largest republic, but all of these other nationalities or republics had to to speak Russian and really become, Russian. Also, too, you're going to see that he will control his people through education and indoctrination. Basically, from the time you were born to the university, you were controlled through education. And guess what? The state is going to provide you education. You go outside, you're going to hear loudspeakers. They're going to be in factories. They're going to be in towns. They're going to, announcements will be on the radio. You go to the movie theater, you're going to hear a short little Soviet announcement first. It is everywhere. Again, comparable to Nazi Germany and what Adolf Hitler did. This good thing, though, the state will provide free education, which is something that they hadn't had before. There's going to be free after-school programs, cultural, political, sports programs to train you for membership in the Communist Party. Also, too, surprisingly, there will be religious persecution. The League of Militant Godless and Stalin and the government, they spread propaganda attacking religion. Because, again, if you are in a totalitarian state, the state and you as a dictator, you're number one. You don't want anybody, even religion, above you. And you see churches and synagogues were destroyed. And the official religion of the Soviet Union was atheism. And this is something that Karl Marx also advocated. It is the official state policy. So you're going to see they will target, again, the largest denomination or the largest religion. In the Soviet Union, it's going to be the Russian Orthodox Church will be targeted. So you had priests, you had ministers, you had, people that were very religious sent to, and they were purged during the Great Purge. So again, atheism is the official policy of the state. Stalin also had various 5-year plans. He had 7 in all, and these were very ambitious goals that all businesses had to meet, or you had to, get in trouble. All economic activity was under government control, so the government owned everything. Anything to do with the economy. They own businesses. And they set these production quotas or goals for specifically heavy industry, improving transportation, increasing farm output. Now, again, remember, we've talked about Russia and the problem that Russia has had with industrializing. And Stalin felt it was a critical need. He's like, we need to do this right now. And he has a plan to do it. Unfortunately, though, the goals were pretty tough to meet. And you will see that a lot of people didn't get to buy consumer products, that a lot of people didn't have, as much food as they would have liked because he was really concerned about having these great, industrial plants, hydraulic plants. So he did industrialize. And you're going to look at some data on Thursday in class to see if you think this really worked. He said high goals, and those that met the goals, like if you were manager of a plant and you met those goals, man, you're getting rewarded. You really are. If you didn't, you're going to be punished, possibly demoted, sent to the gulag. You're in trouble. Also, to talk about the collectivization of agriculture. Specifically, we talked about the serfs in the 19th century Russia and how, again, they were pretty upset with Lenin and his policy and the Bolshevik Revolution. But then Lenin allowed for, under his new economic plan, he allowed for peasants to actually to own the land and then to give their crop to the state. Stalin's not going to like that. No way. He saw the new economic plan as inefficient, and he wanted to have, instead of just private farms, they were called collectives, and they were state-owned farms. So the good thing, like most peasants, they didn't have a tractor. Like they were just, digging out seed from the previous year. They didn't necessarily have mechanized farming. Not all of them did. So the states provided tractors, fertilizers, and better seed. You turned everything over to the state. So you'd produce something and the state would say, okay, we're going to pay, 13 cents for this bushel of grain. You had no control over it as a peasant. And you got to keep like your personal belongings. So say you had some sort of mechanized machinery, you could maybe keep it, but otherwise everything was the state's. Many people resisted. They would kill farm animals. They were burning crops. They were destroying tools. So Stalin is going to react because that's what Stalin does if you don't follow exactly what he says. And he's going to blame it on a group of farmers called the kulaks. And it's Kulak right there. And he's going to really attack them and try this dekulakization where he gets rid of them. Many of their farms are sold off and they are sent really to forced prison camp again. And you're going to see that peasants would do their final kind of revolt by saying, all right, we're not going to produce as much crop if you're not going to let us keep it, if you're just going to make us sell it to you and then you're going to pay us in low wages. So what they did is they just didn't produce as much. The state came in and the police took everything, all of their food, and we have it called, we call it the terror famine, where you have an estimated between 5 and 8 million people died of starvation. Again, and after this, peasants are not going to question Stalin and what he wants the people to do. As we've laid out some policies for totalitarianism, please be prepared to have a discussion on this in class on Thursday.